Welcome to the SIWIKE podcast, the only podcast that shares the stuff you didn't know you needed to know about jobs, careers, and life. The SIWIKE podcast, the stuff I wish I knew earlier.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the SIWIKE Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier, the podcast. I'm your host Luki, and for today's podcast, I thought we'd get into the topic of habits. So a lot of folks are working from home in terms of the current COVID situation, and some folks have picked up habits that haven't been very good for them. Some of them are trying to put in more routines or things that actually will help them and benefit them ongoing. So I wanted to delve into a little bit on kind of what they are and how to create them and cultivate them into your own life. So there's a quote that I quite like from Gandhi, who says something to the effect of your words become your actions become your habits become your values, and your values become your destiny. So really, by creating some good habits, you can have a great and successful career and life in general. And why habits are so important is because, well, that's our body's natural state to conserve energy. They try to create habits so then it's not using all the load on energy in your brain. And there are reports and research that says something of in the ballpark of about 40% of all of the things that you do today are habits, right? And if you don't believe me, then can you actually remember which pant leg that you put on first, or which sleeve on your shirt that you put on, or which side of your mouth that you started brushing your teeth? I presume you're wearing pants and have a shirt and you brush your teeth, first of all. And for those that actually do remember, oftentimes it's because it's so habitual that they know that they always start on the upper left or right or wherever it is of your mouth. You always put your left leg or right leg or left arm or right arm first, right? But you don't consciously make that decision every day to do it. And habits are great. They're amazing because that's what helps you get through your day without exhausting yourself and having to make unlimited choices. But at the same time, habits that don't serve you aren't helpful, right? And the interesting thing is that habits are really just choices that we made and that have started to get ingrained. So whether you like it or not, you're making a habit. So if you are exercising, then you're making a habit to exercise. If you're not exercising, you're making a habit to not exercise, right? And oftentimes it's just that choice that really makes a difference. And J.K. Rowling, who wrote Harry Potter, has a nice quote that says, it's our choices that show what we truly are far more than our abilities, right? So it's that choice to get up off the couch and exercise, to go in and read that book, or to connect with that friend, or whatever it is that you've always wanted to incorporate as a habit. Those choices to do that often set and cascade yourself in order to have a more successful career, right? So when I talk about habits, I often reference Charles Duhigg. So he has a book called The Power of Habit, and there's all sorts of resources out there, and I'll name a few of them here. But Charles Duhigg talks about having a cue, which is some sort of prompt, something that kind of triggers your habit to happen, an action, which is the actual habit itself, the thing that you're doing, and then a reward. So this is something that reinforces the behavior, because without that reward, then that habit probably wouldn't take, it probably wouldn't develop, right? So something happens, you do that thing, and you get a reward. So you feel hungry, you go to the pantry, you grab a bag of chips, and you eat them until they're done. So that's one habit. A habit that doesn't necessarily serve you, but if you can adjust that habit to be you're hungry, you go to the fridge, you grab a bag of carrots, and then you fill yourself up. Well, that would be a healthier habit for you to adopt, right? But that doesn't necessarily make it easy. Another author, Gretchen Rubin, has a book called Better Than Before, and she came up with all these different tendencies, or she noticed a whole bunch of tendencies in folks in terms of ways that they would do things, right? Whether implementing a habit, they had all these different types that she had, and I found after organizing the acronym Space Bears, right, in order to articulate all the different types. So the first S is step, right? So some people, when they do a habit, they go big or go home. Or some people, they like to do these tiny little habits. They want to bite it off piece by piece. The P in Space Bears is pace. So some people are marathoners, right? They know just little by little. They move forward. Some people are sprinters. They want to just go all the way down to the end and finish whatever they want to do. And then other people are procrastinators, right? Whatever deadline they give, they'll just wait and wait and wait and wait, and then finally get it done right before the deadline. The A is aversion, right? So that's kind of like the carrot or the stick. So some people like rewards, they like carrots to be dangled in front of them in order to get something done. And other people's, they need consequences. They need that stick in order to motivate them. The C is chronotype. So this is when you do things, right? So you might be a lion or a lark, it's sometimes called, where you get up as early in the morning in order to get all those things that you want to do done. You could be a bear, the people who kind of go in your normal day, or you could be an owl or a wolf, sometimes it's called, where you're kind of an evening person. And understanding where you are and how you do things best in order to implement and execute these habits. Because if you are an owl and a wolf and try to do your habits early in the morning, oftentimes that's not a recipe for success. But vice versa, if you're a morning person and try to do things when you get home after a long day at work, oftentimes that doesn't work as well. Then there's your expectation type. So that's the E in space. And she has actually a whole book on these. She calls the 4 tendencies, where you're either an upholder, you're an obliger, you're a rebel, or you're a questioner. And that has to deal with whether you meet inner or outer expectations. For a lot of folks who are obligers, they need accountability. They need someone, a study buddy, a gym buddy, or someone to help them to be a motivation, because they will be much more motivated to know that someone is there at the gym waiting for them. They don't want to let them down, or for whatever time line or a deadline that they have, they want to make sure that there's someone else accountable to them. Others, they just need to know why for themselves, why it's important, and then they'll be able to get things done. Another tendency when you're developing habits are your buying habits, right? So are you the type where you overbuy or underbuy? So I know folks where their pantry, their basement are completely stocked with lots of different, toilet paper, obviously, nowadays in these situations. But it could be food, it could be anything, emergency rations and all that sort of stuff. And other people are underbuyers. They will just buy the bare minimum, right? They'll get them to the next month or whenever it takes to do it, and they won't get anything more. Some people have an N type. So the BE for the space bear is, are you a finisher or are you an opener? So some people like to end things off. Some people like to start things out. So which type of person are you? Then there's also availability. So are you simplistic or are you abundant, where again, similar to your buying type, do you want just something minimally that's there, or do you want a lot of it and available? And the R, the last one from the space bear, is recognition. So do you want things that are familiar to you, and you like the comfort of knowing that something is familiar, or do you want the novelty, something that's completely new and different, and that's really what gets you going? And she has these tendencies that says people are of different habits, and by taking a look at your tendency, then you're more likely to be able to fulfill. Because if you're one way, so let's say your step is big and you do this big giant thing, well, then you often get overwhelmed if really your habitual patterns are you want to do little things and build them up over time, right? So that's one model to think about it. Do any of those fit you? And adapting yourself in terms of a particular tendency can help. And a different model, different paradigm is using, it comes from BJ Fogg, right? And he wrote a book called Tiny Habits. And he has his own model where he basically says that any behavior is equal to motivation times ability times a prompt. So that's similar to what Charles Duhigg mentioned, is there's a prompt, there's a cue, there's the trigger, there's something that starts it off. But what the fog model does is really focuses on ability and motivation, right? So he has a nice little chart with ability on one axis and motivation on another axis, and he puts this line on the side which says, well, anything above that line is when a habit happens or an action or behavior happens, and anything below the line is when it doesn't, right? So if behavior is not happening, then it's either your ability to do it or your motivation, right? And the reason why his book is called Tiny Habits is he tries to slice your habits into the tiniest little sliver so that it's almost too easy to do it, or it's almost easier to do it than to not do it, right? So your ability is there, and then as you increase your ability and you do it more, then you're more likely to do it. And then when your ability goes up, then your motivation tends to go up, and you're able to do that, irrespective of all of the different tendencies that Gretchen Rubin had mentioned. But it's another way of looking at habits. So I encourage you to think about how you are in terms of either tendencies, or what is your ability, what is your motivation in order to do those habits, and then start putting stuff into your day, right? Something that I often encourage folks to do is a morning ritual, right? Start your day off great, right? So when the first thing that you do when you wake up, if the first thing that you do is to snooze, that's not a great tendency to have, because that sets your day saying, I just want to delay things. So as much as you can wake up, and yes, I'm guilty of snoozing as well, but as quickly as you can wake up, a tendency that is often recommended is to build the habit of making your bed, right? So no matter what happens in the day, at least you get to go back to a nicely made and fresh bed. And it shows a little bit of control, because again, even though you're rushed and you're already late, taking a minute, a couple seconds, it doesn't usually take long to make your bed, that shows and exerts some control in your day. Then implementing like different habits. So there's a miracle morning that you can set up where you can input some exercise, some meditation, some journaling, some reading, some whatever it is into your morning. And the more that you can put that into a habit and routine, the more it sets yourself up for success. And then using things like your chronotype to figure out, okay, when do you best do things in the day? And sometimes it's the time, and sometimes it's also your energy level, right? So after you do something that has drained your energy, make sure you do something that helps you recover that energy. Because if you're constantly doing things that drain your energy, then you're not going to be able to habitually do other things. So if you make it a habit and a routine to put something energizing in between, then it can help you sustain yourself throughout the day a little bit more. And then picking good habits and almost pre-programming yourself for things like exercise, for things like eating, right? Nutrition. So when you know that you're going to be rushed, what is the restaurant, the takeout place, the meal, the combo that you're going to get, that's going to be a healthier option than just whatever you can find. So even thinking of that and planning your habits beforehand can be helpful as well. And then what do you do when you get home? So oftentimes, especially those who are have a family, before kind of bringing a challenging day with you to the family, to the kids or whatever, take some time to kind of recharge and recover. So then when you meet your family, your partner or whatever, then you can face them with a little bit more positivity and a little more energy than kind of the draining parts of the day that you just went through. And then whatever evening routines that you might have, spending time with the family, with the kids, with your partner, and if you also have to do some work later in the evening, putting whatever routines. I recommend folks to create their model week and try to incorporate what habits are in there. And then if you do them more and more, then they almost don't need to be on the schedule because they're so habitual and they'll take place. And you might want to consider, and you should really consider, an evening routine, right? To help you with better sleep. So things like having a caffeine curfew, a screen curfew, a set routine for a shower and to kind of wind yourself down, whatever it is, will often help you get a better night's rest. So thinking about what are the routines and habits that you want to do on a daily basis, and then think about stuff that you want to include on a weekly, a monthly basis as well, right? So do you have a regular date night with your partner? Any sort of personal, professional night, a guy's night out or a girl's night out with your friends? When is family time? When do you incorporate all of that sort of stuff in there? So how do you incorporate it into your schedule so that it becomes habitual, and then it really becomes part of that destiny that you craft? So thinking about your habits in terms of, well, what are the things that you want to actually do to help cultivate yourself in a good life. So thinking about the cues, the actions, and the rewards that happen and create those habits. Do your habits serve you, or do your habits hinder you? Taking a look at any of those space bear parts and if any of those tendencies are relevant for you. Or as BJ Fogg and his Fogg model, what are the tiny habits that you want to create, the motivation and the ability that you have in order to create all the other habits in there. Thinking about your morning rituals and your evening rituals, and then any sort of other ones for your meals or other activities that you do through your day. And that's it for this episode of the Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier podcast, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for joining us on the SIWIKE Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier, the podcast. If you like the podcast, please subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you found this podcast. And if you can give us a review, that would be very appreciated. Feel free to contact me on LinkedIn at Luki Danu, LUKIDANU, and the same on most social media platforms. And I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks. Bye.